Today I want to show you the process I use for turning these standing magnifying glasses. Now, like any of these things, the sequence is very important. If I started by holding this end and turning the small end, I would not be able to flip it around and grab the small end to turn the big end. So I turn the base first, and then I'll have something to grab in my other chuck to turn the small end and finish up the process. So first step, of course, is just rough it out. This base is a piece of ivory wood. It's actually two pieces glued together, but it's almost impossible to see that point where they're put together. You can see it's wobbling, but of course that's all going to come out as we turn the profile. Now I'm going to switch over to the tool I make, because getting in here kind of tight is difficult. Although I do want to, I think I will do something first here. I'm going to use my roughing gouge, and I'll square off these corners because they're pretty nasty. This is cherry, 3 strips of cherry with black dyed veneer in between. I'll lower my tool up. And that's just to get us started, obviously. Now when I come into this, we're going to get some breakout, but it's not going to travel up the line there. So. Starting to take a little shape here. See, it's just going for a nice sweet curve in there. Come down a little bit further. I think I'll tighten this up in here a little bit. Okay. I'm going to switch to a full gouge, but I'm going to have to go toughness. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. We got a nice edge on the tool. Let's see how it works. Not too bad. I got my own design I come up with for these. So I come in small here, and then I have this little break point. That comes in handy when I flip it around. And you'll see later, that will help fool the eye if there's any run out after I flip it around, because you probably get a little shift in your turning center. And then when I run the curve here, you won't see anything. I'm going to hit this though with a detail gouge. Try and sharpen up this. This gives me a better cut edge on this end grain in the undercut. And I think now that's good enough. I can sand that into submission. But I'm going to turn the bottom. So let me show you how I do that. I can move the camera around and give you a better view. Okay, I got a better view for you there. You can see I'm going to tackle the base. Now, I'm going to have a little nib in the center, you'll see. And I have my own way of making that go away, which I'll show you when we get to that point. But let's get a little design going here. A little high. Now, sometimes I put a what I call a signing ring in here, sometimes not, but I think I'll put one in here just to show you what I'm talking about. So this is one of my small tools that I make, and I've got a 1/8 bit in there ground to a nice point, and I just use that to dive in there and make 2 rings. Now what I'll do is I usually number all my pieces and just put my initials, and I'll do that inside that ring. It makes it look kind of neat. Now all I'm going to do at this point is sand this area down on both sides. And that sanding is not exciting, so I think I'll do that off camera. And then when I come to the point of removing this center nib, I'll show you how I go about that. Well, I've sanded the turning that I left you with last time, and that's all done. On the other side here is down to 400. This here I went down to 320, but I still got this nib to get rid of. And so what I do is I use one of my little micromotor grinders with a nice coarse cutter on it, and I'll show you how that works. I will use the lathe to turn this, and want to turn in the forward direction just because of the cutter action is rotating this way, so it gives a nice cutting response. And turn this on, just hold this gently with my hand and just wear it down. You have to take your time. And after a while you get a feel for it. And you can feel it to see what your progress is, of course. Probably the best way to really tell. Now, I'm not really after something that's mirror smooth, but I think that's pretty much good enough. Now I'm going to go in here, back to the sandpaper. I'll probably go with 150, and what I'll do, so I'll just hand sand it here to make those cut marks go away from the carving wheel, carving burr, or whatever you want to call it. And it's still supported well enough to do a little power sanding here too. Typically I would have my dust collector on when I'm doing this, but I shut it off so you don't have to listen to that whine. But just so you know what it sounds like, that's usually what I have as a background noise. Grips, this is 220. I still do this kind of thing. It helps to really cover everything. Now I'm at 320. And last, I just go hit it with some 400. It's probably overkill, but it's nice to know that you got all the scratches laying out. That's that. Pretty good job. Now we're going to flip it around and we're going to turn the rest of this. Well, now that we've finished that portion of the stand, you can see we've got to finish the rest of this. To do that, we're going to put it in this chuck here. And when I got to that point, I thought, well, first I want to show you the chuck we were using before. This one is made by Vicmark. They're made in Australia. And one thing I like about this chuck, it's called a VM100. I don't think they make it anymore. But it goes down smaller than my Nova chuck. So this will hold down to about 1 inch square very nicely. So that's what I was using to drive from this end. Now we're going to drive from this end, so I put my Nova in here with the grippers that I make, and I also put some fairly tall spacers in here. And the way they will work is to hold the piece out a bit. And it's still registered to the face of the jaws, so it'll be square. So let me finish putting that in, and I'll set you up at a better spot, and we'll finish up the rest of this magnifying glass stand. Okay, we're ready to turn the rest of this magnifying glass stand, so let's get going. You do just about all of this with the roughing blade. Get the tool rest a little lower. This works better and maybe a little tighter. That should do it. Well, it's coming along. I've got my own sort of shape that I've developed for these things, and it's going to be a slope curve in here, but I'm going to bias the center of the lower point, I guess you could say, right around in this area. So that's what I'm working towards. You can see we still got to come down a little bit here. It's coming together. I think it's coming in pretty good now. That's pretty much what I'm looking for. A little more fine tuning. Yeah, I think now I'm about ready to do the sanding. Not the most exciting part of the process, but I'll let you watch a little bit of it anyway. And then we'll get to the fun part where we're going to drill and tap. this end here. Now for the fun part of, I always double check after turning a bit to make sure that this is still tight. That's good. And now, I'm going to take out my live center here and put in my chuck. We're ready to go. Just go with the center drill first, just to establish the hole. Then the tap drill. Okay, now we go ahead and sand that before I tap it, because I still have some remnants of the center lines that I drew. So that's cleaned off now. Now this is an M6 by 1 tap, and at this point I can shut off the lathe. I'm not going to need the lathe power for this. I'm just going to slide this up and rotate it by hand to get it started. I'm going to lock the headstock in place so it won't turn. Get my tap handle in here. And just complete the tap. This will accept the little stubby M6 by 1 threaded rod piece that I've already got setting in the magnifying glass head on the other bench, and I'll show you that later. And this here is the last operation in the making of the stand. And then I'm just going to put a finish on this. And the last step is mounting the magnifying glass on the top. So that's the process. Thus some of you might be interested in how I go about finishing this. I just use a spray-on shellac because this is pretty hard to really handle this. You don't want to set it down on any surface. Almost the entire thing is a finished surface. And so I use a spray-on and I hold it with a welding rod that works just fine for going into that hole that we just drilled. And let's get this underway. that's about that for the first coat. And the nice part about this is while it's curing, when it's a fresh spray, I can just sit here and twirl it to make sure we don't get any real drips or sags or anything in the finish. And then after this, of course, after the first coat at least, when I let this fully cure, I come here with about 400 grit and we'll sand it down, because of course you'll get grain raising on the first coat. This is like cherry and was it dyed veneer black with the ivory wood as the base. You can see the two halves there, I hope. And so that's it for this. I'll just continue to put the finish on, and when I get that set the way I like it, we'll show you the next step. I just put this in a vise to hold it up in the air, and we'll let that set. Well, here's the final standing magnifying glass stand. You can see it's finished. Came out very nicely. The cherry looks good. I believe this is choke cherry too, in fact. Trying to remember. And I threaded the hole, as you saw. And now we're going to assemble it. Now, I figured I would show you how I get these magnifying glasses. I buy them like this, and they have a handle on them. I take the cleaning cloth and just throw that in a box. And so here we are. And I just unscrew the handle. And what I do, this is a metric thread, M6 by 1. Now I will get a piece of threaded rod, which I cut into little pieces like so. And I will get my thread lock. This is Loctite. And I put that on the threads. Just a little dab is all you need. And what this will do is secure it into the machine thread on the magnifying glass. Now, this one here I've just done, so I will set that aside, and I will use one that I've done a couple days ago, and we'll complete this magnifying glass. All I do then, because that is a machine thread into wood, it's reasonably good, acts as a dowel, but I secure it with E6000. And that will really lock it into the wood. Once this takes a set, it'll stay there. So, ready now to just screw them together. That is that. It's good to go now. A completed standing magnifying glass. That's how I make these things, and wanted to show you the process from start to finish. Thanks for watching.